It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio, 866-90 Red Eye, 866-907-3339. Dan in for Gary and Eric. You can find out more about me on my Facebook and X feed at Dan Mandis Show. I host a morning show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN in Nashville, Tennessee, 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check us out pretty much anywhere streaming. We also, if you're one of those folks that likes to watch a radio show, we are on Facebook and Twitter and Twitch and YouTube as well. Just search 99.7 WTN or Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So did you folks see the, I posted it to my X feed at Dan Mandis Show, and it's this commercial, and it's called White Dudes for Harris. Did you see this story? I think this was going on Friday, but it is so absolutely ridiculous, where you have all of these, regular everyday white guys who are, telling men across America that it's okay, it's manly to vote for Kamala Harris.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Meat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
All right, so raw dogging, in case you don't know, is literally sitting on a flight and not doing anything. Not looking at your phone, not watching a movie. You're just looking forward. But beyond all that, the basic message, the basic premise is we got all of these normal, everyday men who are trying to convince men around the country that it's okay to vote for Kamala Harris. It's okay to vote for a woman. And my question would be, who ever said it wasn't okay for a man to vote for a woman? See, this is the ridiculousness of the left. Because they put out this commercial, a minute 34, of all of these regular, everyday dudes that are saying, we're manly men, and we support Kamala Harris.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
Can I ask a question? Because obviously this is a commercial for Kamala Harris. What man has been domineering or belittling women within the Trump camp? Who are they talking about? It's kind of bizarre, and it's also interesting because I want to make sure you understand this. So the campaign and the politician that is okay with dudes being in girls' restrooms, hashtag tampon Tim. The campaign that thinks it's okay for dudes to be in women's restrooms or little girls' restrooms is out here saying, oh, yeah, but we're supportive of women. You're really not. Because all it takes is for one guy to say, oh, yeah, I identify as a woman. And these politicians will let that guy in with your daughter. 8 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old. So I love how they're sitting here trying to convince the American people that the Democrat Party is the party of women, when it's really not.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
Man up, they say, and get involved with the campaign of Kamala Harris. So, whole bunch of men, right? You know, those are all actors. Every single one are actors. And so, I guess my question is, how can you be, well, it's Kamala Harris. I mean, let's be honest. But how can you expect to be believed on anything? I mean, you put out there, and by the way, a lot of these actors, they've got profiles. A lot of them are leftist leaning or outright because they looked at their social media, their bios and so forth. Once they figured out that these were, obviously a bunch of actors, they started looking at their profiles and they're like, yeah, these guys are a bunch of lefties. But I think the point is that they're trying to make it look like these are all average American guys, and they're not. But they're also trying to make it, they're trying to put forward the narrative that men are not voting for Kamala Harris because we're a bunch of racist pigs or sexist pigs, bunch of sexist pigs. I mean, they call us racist too, so it just kind of flows. But you see, the reality is, as you look at these commercials and you look at the things that Kamala Harris and the Democrats do, it's all very inconsistent. So you portray yourself as, pro-women and pro-girl, even though you are perfectly okay with men taking spots on the sports teams of women, girls' sports teams. You're perfectly okay with men going into the locker rooms and the bathrooms of women, of little girls. It just doesn't compute. But you see, this notion that they're, on the one hand, they're trying to redefine what masculinity is, and then saying, but no matter how masculine or unmasculine you are, it's okay to vote for a woman. This is 2024. There's not a bunch of guys out there that are saying, oh, I ain't going to vote for no woman. No, I speak to thousands of people every day. I've never met anyone on my side of the aisle that has said that they would not vote for Kamala Harris because she's a woman. They always say it's because of her policies. It's because of her word salads. It's because of the lying. It's because of what's happened the last 3.5 to 4 years. That's why men are not voting for Kamala Harris. Obama goes out. We were talking about this earlier. Obama goes out and he starts talking about how black men, or as he put them, the brothers, the black men out there are not supporting Kamala Harris. And the data backs that up. And so now you've got a whole bunch of people online, whole bunch of black men who did not like what Barack Obama had to say. Obama was out there. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Obama said this, caught on an open microphone, where he says that, the brothers, they're not supporting Kamala Harris.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles, pain, and joy that comes from those experiences.
All right, so I guess the question would be, when you think about your average American, Kamala Harris has gotten a lot of advantages because of things that she did early on. And talk about Willie Brown. She got her start in politics by sleeping with the mayor of San Francisco. I'm not shaming, I'm stating a fact. She has received all kinds of support in places where she, quite frankly, didn't deserve it. For example, how many people in America today end up being the presidential nominee for a major political party, and you don't have to win one single vote? So for Barack Obama to sit here and try and say, oh, yeah, she's just like you. She's just like you. You know, she's really not. And then he goes on to castigate black men, basically calling them a bunch of misogynists.
Because there are a lot of Americans who are still struggling out there. So I get it, why people are looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the hopey-changey guy. So I understand people feeling frustrated and feeling we can do better. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you.
Well, I guess the question is, what did Kamala Harris do for the last 4 years? And Donald Trump shook things up during his term in office. During Donald Trump, we didn't see 9.3% inflation. We weren't involved in 2 seemingly forever wars. We didn't have a failed pullout of Afghanistan. And so, and I played this earlier, and a lot of people reached out and they wanted me to replay it. So, Obama coming out and calling black men sexist or misogynist for not supporting Kamala Harris, it hasn't really gone over too well, as a matter of fact.
Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. We vote for Trump, right?
This message is for Barack. Ain't never did a thing for us in the 8 years he was in the White House ever. Obama. Keep black men's name out your motherfucking mouth.
Like, anybody trying to listen to you, bro? You didn't get the memo? We ain't got 2 words for you. Yes, we do. High and by. B-O.
So they sent Obama to come get us and bring us back to the Democratic plantation. They sent Obama back to come get us. He insulted us. He said, I was highly offended when he said the only reason we voting for Donald Trump is because we don't want a woman in president, so we come up with... Just shut up. Shut up.
Barack Hussein Obama, the audacity of you to say to us that we are required and we better vote for Kamala Harris and that we don't want to see a woman in a position of power. You're a liar.
This message is for President Obama. First and foremost, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. Number one, I ain't going to vote for Kamala Harris. I think that she's going to make a bad president. She's a bad vice president. Everything she does, she tries to politicize it. And she hasn't shown the fact that she wants to put America first ever. So I'm not voting for that individual. Secondly, I think that it's really sad that you would come out against black men and actually degrade them because they're not picking the person that you want them to vote for.
Exactly. And it goes on and on. I got to take a break, but if you want to check that out, it's a video, and you can find it on my X feed at Dan Mandis Show. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis for Gary and Eric. It's Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Hurricane Milton. What are initial concerns about impacts to ag along its central Florida path? USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey.
Some of the greatest impacts are likely to be on the citrus industry. We did have grapefruit, mostly grown on the eastern coast, oranges all across counties in the central part of the state.
With fruit still green or starting to color.
Given the time of year, a lot of those fruits, when the winds are high, they blow off or they're lost as they drop into the fields and the orchards below.
Concerns also arise about strawberries in the Lakeland, Tampa area exposed to Milton. In addition,
hopeful that long-term impacts will be relatively minimal in the sugarcane sector.
As Florida's sugarcane is grown further south of Milton's path, produce is between seasons, according to Rippey, minimizing damage to vegetables. Milton-associated power outages to farm and dairy operations, however, are expected to be significant. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Eight 866-90 Red Eye is the phone number. 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis in for Gary and Eric. Let's say hello to Drew calling from Pacoima, California. Hey, Drew. Welcome on in.
Hey, Eric, Pacoima, California. And yes, I just want to let everyone out there know the black support for Trump is legit. It's real. It's not just blacks, it's Latinos supporting Trump. Because everyone can see and feel the inflation, the border BS, and all the phony BS that is Kamala Harris. At least Biden, that fool, he is a fool. But at least he's real. He might be out of his mind. I don't know where he is in his dementia. But Kamala Harris is fake as they come. And we can all see it. Everybody. Even the fools on the street, the homeless people can see how fake and phony she is. So keep that going. And Trump is going to be in office again. It's because of him. I'm in Pacoima right now. I live in Santa Clarita. And 2016, got a house, new job, because of his policies. Not the billionaires. I was about to say a bad word. That's BS. Yeah. It's because of him and his policies then, and my manager. And then COVID happened in 2020. You can see it, go online and see what was happening over there in China before it hit here. And that shut everything down. Conspiracies, I don't know. But what I do know is that I was about to call him an N-word. When he was in office, everybody was doing good, including me. Everybody.
Yep. You're right.
She's fake and she's phony, and you can see right through her like a glass window. Clear. You can't be more transparent than she is fake and phony.
And here's the thing.
All right, Drew, thank you very much. I appreciate the call. I'm sorry, that audio bite came and interrupted Drew. But you know what? It came at a good time. Can I fit this in? Let's see here. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Kamala Harris. I have time to fit this in real quick. She is out on the campaign trail. Drew was just talking about how she is phony, and she didn't have a real bone in her body. Listen to this. This was out on the campaign trail. Kamala Harris, and she's doing the whole thinking person's, chin in the hand thing.
And here's the thing. It makes you wonder. Why does his staff want him to hide away?
Oh, my God. Why does Trump's staff want to hide him away? You, Kamala Harris, asking this question? You've been hiding for months.
One must question. Are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable?
Oh, my Lord. I'll talk about that next on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. I'm going to play the rest of this Kamala Harris audio coming up, but first I want to say hello to Brian listening to us in Kansas City. Brian, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. After listening to what Mr. Obama said, it sounds like a racist statement, since he's talking to black men and saying you need to vote for her because she's black.
Yeah, it's absolutely a racist comment.
Vote for your own kind. And if George Bush had said that to a group of white men, they'd have said the same thing. He didn't come out and say, hey, vote for Biden because he's an old white man.
Yeah.
So I don't know why nobody's coming out and saying, hey, that's a racist statement there.
I don't know, Brian.
Because you're your own kind.
Well, Brian, I don't know if you heard the audio from all of those black men that I played, but a lot of them did say that Obama, what he said was absolutely racist. And there are some in the media that are calling him out. I don't think it's going to have the desired effect. Do you? I mean, do you see anyone, I mean, black, white, red, green, yellow, blue, but do you see anyone that would respond kindly to being told, if you don't vote for this person, it's because, you're sexist or you're misogynist? I don't, that's not exactly a good way to win friends and influence people.
Well, I would vote for a woman, whatever color she is, if she's a conservative and if she wants to protect the Constitution and reduce the size of government. Hey, I'll listen to her all day. But I'm not hearing that from Kamala, so
no.
I don't really want to vote that direction. But it has nothing to do with her race or her gender or religion or anything else. It just has to do with her policies. And
yeah, or her lack of policy. I mean, you're absolutely right. And Brian, I appreciate the call out there in Kansas City. All you have to do is listen to this audio. I'm going to play this in full. Brace yourself. It's 31 seconds of cringy Kamala.
Here's the thing. It makes you wonder.
And she's got I posted this to my X feed at Dan Mandis Show. She's got her chin in her hand in the pose of the pondering emoji.
It makes you wonder, why does his staff want him to hide away?
Now realize that the man has been on tour nonstop. Realize that he was just in front of thousands of people in Coachella. Realize that Donald Trump has given an interview to almost every person seemingly on the planet. Yet somehow cackling Kamala thinks that Donald Trump is hiding.
One must question, are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable to lead America? Is that what's going on?
No, actually, it's not. Isn't it kind of funny how Donald Trump took a bullet for America, and then he stood up, wanted to finish the speech, blood rolling down the side of his cheek, part of his ear blown off, tackled by 5 or 6 different Secret Service agents. And then gets up and says, fight, 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 with a raised fist. And Kamala Harris thinks that Donald Trump is weak? Kamala Harris thinks that Donald Trump is hiding? Kamala Harris thinks that Donald Trump's staff is hiding him? I mean, there's part of me that hears that, and it's like, okay, so number one, it's just the tone, the condescending nature of her statement, the way that she says it is just incredibly condescending for a man who came within like a millimeter of dying. Then you had the second assassination attempt. We don't really know exactly what happened in Coachella over the weekend, but I'll get into that in a minute. But that's the thing. The lack, and you can see that on my X feed, the lack of self-awareness of Kamala Harris, who, by the way, she herself has given almost no interviews whatsoever. The only interviews she has given have been interviews where she failed miserably or are friendly or both. So I thought it was really interesting that she would come out and she would say that on stage when the reality is that Donald Trump is far more qualified, far more, in my opinion, mentally able to lead America. He's got the strength. He's got the durability. He's got the smarts. What does Kamala Harris have? Nothing, at least in my opinion. Now, what happened in Coachella? So, have you heard this? Your local morning shows are going to be talking about this, so let me do a head start. So, in Coachella, apparently, a guy shows up, and he is in a car, and the security folks stop him, and he's got a couple of loaded guns in his car, and according to some, when they stopped him, and they found the loaded guns in the car, and his car was a mess, and there's all kinds of other things that they deemed suspicious. The guy supposedly said that he wanted to shoot Donald Trump. But that sounds like it was just a bunch of BS. Nobody can really figure out what exactly is going on or what happened in Coachella over the weekend. The former president, possibly future president, was in Coachella, and it's just a big, big event like Donald Trump has, and they caught this guy. Vem Miller, 49 years old. And this is what the local sheriff, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, said.
There were many irregularities that popped up. The deputy noticed that the interior of the vehicle was in quite disarray. The vehicle had an obviously fake license plate, and that prompted further investigation from our deputy into why the person was there and what he was doing. During that investigation, the deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was what we in law enforcement would recognize as one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens. So during the investigation, obviously those identification documents were found in addition to a loaded handgun and a shotgun.
All right, so you know how this goes, right? So the suspect's name gets out and everybody starts, doing their recon on Vem Miller, 49 years old. He got arrested. Well, now he's broken his silence, and he has confirmed that he is actually a supporter of Donald Trump. And he says that I would never in a million years want to shoot the former president. Why would I? He says he was a great president. Now, one of the things that he says, Miller says that while he keeps firearms in his car to protect against death threats, he has never fired one before, and says that he is beyond a novice about the guns. Well, my 2 cents on that would be not to split hairs here, but if you've never fired a gun, but you're keeping them in your car, you might want to learn how to fire those guns, my friend. But anyway, he says, yeah, listen, I have no interest in shooting Donald Trump. I'm a supporter, he says, of Donald Trump. He says, I'm an artist. I'm the last person that would cause any violence and harm to anybody. He told the local press enterprise, adding the accusations were complete BS. When asked by Fox News about his political beliefs, he confirmed 100% Donald Trump supporter. Miller also says there are no falsified IDs on his person, and there was confusion because he's Armenian, and some use his full birth name and others don't to avoid potential anti-Armenian sentiment around the world. Okay. He further denied accusations made by the Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco that he was a part of an anti-government sovereign citizens movement. He says, not the case. He says that is a nonsensical statement. I don't think there is such a thing. Calling it equally nonsensical that Bianco saw him as far right. So I don't know. I don't know who screwed up here, but this is part of what the sheriff had to say.
Holy crap. What did he show up with all of that stuff for? An unregistered vehicle with fake license plate and loaded firearms. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt. If we are that politically lost, that we have lost sight of common sense and reality and reason, that we can't say that, holy crap, what did he show up with all of that stuff for and loaded guns, and I'm going to be accused of being dramatic? We have a serious problem in this country because this is common sense and reason.
Well, okay, but the guy is reported to have said, I don't know by who, but that when he was arrested, he admitted that he wanted to kill Donald Trump. Now, apparently that's not true. Now, I don't know where that was reported. Right-wing documentarian Mindy Robinson said Miller has been a MAGA activist for years. Yeah, there's video of him online. On social media, he's hanging out with Donald Trump Jr. and Newt Gingrich. And a few other conservatives as well. In an exclusive interview with DailyMail.com, this right-wing documentarian, Mindy Robinson, did describe Miller as a journalist and documentarian. So I don't know what the deal is. Whole thing just sounds a little weird. So just so you know, when you hear third assassination scare, there's a lot more to the story. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We'll return next.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE. Dan Mandis here, in for Gary and Eric. Always appreciate the opportunity to fill in very quickly. Tim Walz, of course, running mate for Kamala Harris. You know, he's been out there running around talking about how our First Amendment right to free speech needs to be curtailed because we're the ones, as conservatives, who are disseminating disinformation and misinformation. So Shannon Bream asked him, okay, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Speech. You've said there's no guarantee to free speech for misinformation or hate speech. But first of all, Supreme Court very clear in a unanimous 2017 decision that hate speech is protected. That's the kind of stuff that needs to be protected, stuff none of us like to hear. But more importantly, who gets to decide on the issue of what misinformation is?
Look, the First Amendment is foundational. It's something I spent my whole life, the vice president, and I think most Americans are clear on this. The point being on this, we're seeing censorship coming in the form of book bannings in different places. We're seeing it attempts in schools. The issue on this is the hate speech and the protected hate speech. Speech that's aimed at creating violence, speech that's aimed at threats to individuals. And that's what we're talking about in this. And the decision on that, society decides on a lot of this. The idea of someone going on and threatening someone's life or a child's life online, I don't think any of your viewers think that is something that should be acceptable.
I mean, there's a distinction, you would say, though, between something like a threat and misinformation.
He cannot identify what misinformation is.
Oh, certainly, and that's what we're talking about. And I think the idea of making sure that folks understand, are good consumers of that, those are the decisions they make. But I've always defend your First Amendment rights, defend your right to disagree on every case. That robust discussion has to happen, and that's why I'm so opposed to book banning. That's why in Minnesota we banned the practice of book banning. Let you make the decision of what you're going to read, whether you find it objectionable or not. The difference is threats, that type of speech.
As many will tell you, the Republicans don't actually want to ban books. What the Republicans want is age-appropriate materials in the schools and the libraries. That's it. Age-appropriate materials, man, those 3 words. That is what the Republicans are for, not book banning.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.